Hello, this is Jon Speelman with a very quick roundup of the day's events at the London Classic tournament at Kensington Olympia in the middle of London, which is the final event of this year's Grand Chess Tour. There are two semi-finals going on for 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a rest day on Thursday, and then the finals Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the two semi-finals, I'm going to start first with the very quiet game, just to get that out of the way. Aronian against Ding Liren. Levon Aronian, I think, wasn't that interested in playing a very exciting game today. And what happened? He went g3. So e4 is the move they play normally, of course. e4 takes, bishop b4 check, bishop b2, bishop takes, queen takes. That's the main line, the normal main line. But Aronian just went g3 and check, bishop d2, takes, b6. Nice sensible move, contesting the diagonal. And they played some moves. This has a little threat, positional threat of knight g5, and so he just played knight f6. Now the knight gets a square, but it's nothing very much. Check here, rook to there, e4. I wondered if he could play rook c1 and if recapture's taken a2, but basically this position is most definitely not good for black. He's got a recapture, he can't take the pawn, because then queen b3 would hit the rook, the queen would get to this square. So you can go queen c4, rook e8, and this is definitely better for white, because white's attacking, and the queen and knight are a huge attacking force. So maybe black could survive, but it wouldn't be a remotely sensible thing to do. So he went back, queen a3's interesting move. Ding played h5, I guess that sorts out the back rank. I mean, it occurred to me he could have played king to f2 to e3. I think you'd have to be very crazed to do that, but it's not completely insane trying to defend the d pawn, but okay. What actually happened was that they swapped some pieces. And now you can go rook takes rook and play chess, or Aronian decided to make a draw. Queen a7. Obviously, if rook takes queen with check, white has the advantage, so he took the rook, and now this is perpetual check. Fairly simple perpetual check. If we go back, if he goes to here, then you can go check here, check. Obviously you can't go to king h6 because of queen g6 mate, and if he goes to h8, you can go knight f7, king g8, knight h6 check, and obviously king f8 would be a mistake because of queen f7 mate. So that was that game, and that finished fairly quickly, and we were left with Carlsen against Vachier-Lagrave, which is a very interesting game actually. So let's start it and let's get to the critical points. e4, c5, knight f3, d6. Carlsen decides to take on Vachier-Lagrave's favourite Najdorf. Plays bishop g5 and we think, oh, that's going to be exciting. Then he plays almost a new move, f3. If you play queen d2, the problem is that h6. If bishop b3, black can chase the bishop. And if bishop h4, this is part of the point of the Najdorf move order. Knight takes e4, bishop takes queen, knight takes queen is just better for black already. So you can't, and queen f4, there's either knight g5 or maybe, probably knight g5 is good. So, because in the Richter-Rouser, if black's played here, then if h6 isn't much of a move because you can take, and if queen takes you go knight db5, which is a definite nuisance because you're threatening to go to c7 and to take the pawn, and after queen d8 you can castle. and you actually win a pawn. So h6 you can play, h6 can't be played in the classical variation, but in the Najdorf it's important. And so Carlsen played a new move. I mean, the normal move is f4, of course, but Carlsen played the move f3, which means that if h6, which actually happened, you can go back. And so this way you've got your moves in and you've stopped knight g4, but you have lost the tempo, which is often a useful tempo to be able to play in the English attack, which is what this is becoming. This could have started, if you go back to the Najdorf, then here, then this is a variation. And quite often white later plays here and black plays h6. So, not sure if this has even ever been seen before. Vachier-Lagrave had a think and went h6 and bishop e3. So here's a tempo ahead. But on the other hand, Carlsen has made a hook, what they call a hook. So if you can start a kingside attack like this, then because of the pawn on this square, you'll be able to go g5 and try to open lines. Obviously that isn't happening at the moment. He castled. We were looking at this and thinking he isn't going to castle, is he? Because it just looks a bit silly. Now Vachier-Lagrave, if rook c8, I presume that Carlsen would have played g4 and would have claimed that despite the loss of a tempo, this position is still quite a good one for white. So Vachier-Lagrave played h5. Obviously, white's now played bishop to g5 and back to e3, and black's played h6 and h5. And this is a position that's been seen before. h5 is quite a common theme in these positions because it stops g4. Carlsen moved his king. I found a few other games in the database. Obviously these would have occurred without both sides losing a tempo. Bishop e7. He doesn't want to castle yet, but he's getting ready to. Queen e1, rook c8. Now, we thought he might try queen g3. Well, you might be able to play rook c3, just because it makes a mess of white's king. You can also do this variation. We had a lot of fun. I was in the VIP room today at Olympia, so we were analysing with lots of bods, people such as John Nunn, who's a very good analyst. After this, actually, this is a good move, but I found a really fun line, which I knew was nonsense at the time, but I enjoyed. Rook to here, knight takes pawn. So if rook takes queen, you take the queen. Pawn takes check here. I found the move g4 actually. Takes. Now bishop h6 is quite good for white. I wanted to play this ludicrous line. And black has two good moves here. He has knight e5 is good for him, and queen e8 is good for him, I believe, because again you're still covering this square. But what you can't do is to go check takes, because now it's just mate. Knight g8, bishop e6, and there's absolutely no defence against queen f7 mate or queen g8 mate. So that was a completely silly line, but I enjoyed finding it. Anyway, Magnus played rook g1. You could maybe play g3. He doesn't want to play h3 because black might play h4 and stifle his pawns. It's expansion. Vachier-Lagrave played sensible moves. I wanted to try to make knight takes f3 work in this position. By the way, here there's a line that goes here, bishop f4, e5, knight f5, pawn takes bishop, pawn takes pawn, queen e5, and you'd be very scared about this in the game. There's this move actually, but now it appears that you can play, there is a move that is good for black. I believe you maybe take on g3 even. I'm going to ask an engine because I can't remember. It's saying king d8, which is very unlikely really. Sorry, bishop d8. Queen takes, knight takes. Rook e1 is what you'd normally expect to play. But you play king f8. I mean, apparently d7 check would still be okay. And this position you can go rook c6 or something. You have the advantage as black. That was completely unobvious at the board because you'd think that this would be dangerous. So knight e5 is a natural move. I rather wanted to play knight takes f3 though, it's nonsense. He just castled. And Magnus played h3, teeing up to play g4. And now Vachier-Lagrave broken the centre. Magnus, if you takes, if you do this, then black is getting a very good game, really. All of his pieces are working, and white doesn't remotely have an attack yet, and you maybe got knight c4 coming in a moment. And bishop f4, you can just go, presumably go bishop d6, can you? Or maybe you can go bishop f6, I'm not sure actually. I was thinking bishop f6, then I noticed knight f5. I wonder also if I can do that and then play knight f3 or something. Let me again ask the engine for a moment. Bishop d6, knight f5, knight takes f3, and apparently the tactics work for black, which you would be able to see in a game. I mean, I'm being lazy here by turning the engine on. Anyway, he played f4, which makes sense to keep the position a bit closed, and e5. And knight takes e3 was played, don't have to do that. And knight e4. He could also just go back to d7, and maybe white would play f5 then. So this position, this pawn is weak, but it takes some time to round it up. Magnus went to this square, which gives the king an escape route in some lines. Well, you don't want to play b3 because have horrid black squares, so you go knight b3. So now you're probably threatening to go bishop takes e4, and Vachier-Lagrave played the move you want to play, which is this. You could recapture. White would play b3, queen c3. It wouldn't be dangerous for white. So he did what he wanted to do, which is this, which is obviously very dangerous. We were watching in the VIP room, as I said, and we really didn't know quite what was going on. But John Nunn, who's a tremendous tactician, found c4, which I think is the best move. Because now if you take it, then the thing is, if you go c3, then there's check here and check, which is very dangerous. I'm not sure if it's winning or not, but it's extremely bad. Things can happen very easily. Here, d2, c2. You can maybe go d3 here or something. Looks like a move that might cause some upset. Anyway, it's extremely dangerous. And c4 has the advantage. It gains a tempo to stop the bishop going to there. If bishop takes, you can take, and go here, I think. And now you're probably just about okay. Let me just check that again, because I could have left him a mate in one, and I might not be the wiser. I believe this is quite good for white now. Yeah, very good for white. So, but Vachier-Lagrave took this way, and now we thought from his reaction, I didn't ask him, I didn't see him, that he'd missed c4, and he had to think, because it's very hard to see. If you go back a few moves, about here, it's quite hard to see that white's going to have the resource c4 in this position. He took with the pawn. Now knight a4 is the best move here. I'm just going to get, I have a piece of paper which I've stupidly left away from the board. I left it in my printer, which is extremely dopey of me. So knight a4 is the best move, and if rook b8, knight c3, for instance, rook b8, knight c3, queen checks, you can run. That's why the rook is so much better here than on d2, and you get your king to e1, and nothing. I mean, black is fighting, but it's not a good position. If I ask the engine, it's going to say plus a pawn or something. It is. Okay, but actually Magnus went here. Now what happened was that Vachier-Lagrave realised that he could force a draw by going queen to here and queen back, and that's what he did. But the engine's like this move: take, rook to here. So now you're threatening queen a1 check, and the only move is this, and you take and check and take and take and king h7, And the white king is in such a state here that I think queen b4 is given as the best move. Queen d4, you go check here. Queen c2 check. King here, and I think this is very dangerous. The whole position is deeply scary. You're threatening queen e2 mate there. I guess you're going to have to go up or something. Queen to d6 or something to give yourself some room. Because if you go queen to b6, you're going to lose the queen. Queen c3, you get mated after queen e2 and queen f2. So there'd be tremendous scope in this position for getting yourself checkmated. It would be enormously scary, and probably in a game you'd expect black to win this, actually. Just because even Magnus wouldn't be able to do this. Queen b4 is given as a better move by my engine. And now it goes queen b4, queen b1 check, king d2, queen c2 check, king e1, I think, is given here. Because now if bishop d3, you can go back to d2, presumably. But it's all very, very scary, and he would have played it if he'd realised, I'm sure. He had half an hour left, but in fact he went queen checks here, which I think threatens some sort of thing with c3. I think c3 is a big threat. So I played g4, and obviously I wouldn't. So I played bishop e4, and I think this move is really unpleasant now. Is that right? Here, queen takes, bishop here, check. Is that right? Well, no, bishop takes e4 check, then we'll win the queen, won't it? Yeah, you can just go bishop b4 and win a queen. And clearly it's going to be better for black. So anyway, he had a think and went king c1, and they repeated moves. So it was a good start to proceedings, I think. A good hard game, and we'll see. They've got some more classical games, and then they've got rapid play and blitz afterwards. Okay, so this is a roundup of the first day. I'm intending to round up the other days as well for Lee Chess. And tomorrow I'm going to stream. I'm going to be at home streaming rather than at the venue. So I'll be streaming, that's Tuesday and Friday, commentary of these games from 1600 GMT.